What's up, fellows? See, you thought I wasn't going to come back, right? You thought, oh, she's forgotten us. She can't come back. She's too far gone. She has left us behind. But no. They said I couldn't do it. The haters, they said I couldn't do it, but I did. And I am back. I'm back, everyone. It's Stay Podsitive with your host, me. And feels good to be back in the chair, right? Same old chair. Got it from Wayfair. What I love, they are not a sponsor. What I love about this is, so we got a new, we got a new studio, guys. The network got us a new studio. Just kidding. This is just still in where I live. But I did change rooms, and I got this little multicolored light thing, which is it cycles through different colors, everyone. For those of you on audio, I'm holding up a little lantern-like thing that cycles through different colors. And it's very cool. It feels very, very gamer. Like if I was a gamer and I had a gaming room. I don't know what I'm talking about. Stop asking. Just as a heads up, this episode's going to have like a little bit more intro than some of the other ones. So if you want to skip to the interview, you can. But I think the intro is fun. And it's also a little preview that I'm probably going to be doing more solo episodes. So, if you hate it, there's going to be more. Yes, I know I was gone for a while. I can't remember exactly when my last episode was, but I think it was a little under a year ago, maybe April of last year. I don't even know. But you know what happened? A couple things happened. Obviously, pandemic still happening. That was already going on when we were still in session. So that happened. Then I got all the vaccines, all the jabs, including the booster most recently. But I think initially, remember how fun that was when we first got the vaccine and it was like, oh, we're back. Oh, the world is our oyster. We're immune. So that was around March, April of last year, 2020, 2021. Oh, man, my precious soul, how sweet and tender I am. So yeah, back in March, April 2021, probably around the time when this podcast kind of quit it, when it stopped for a minute, I, was like, oh yeah. And so I went to Florida. Duh, first place I went. No, but I did go to Florida. I saw an awesome wrestling show, shout out to AEW. I was ringside, fucking right up against wrestlers. There was a wrestler that came up to our seat and I was like, whoa, yeah, I am in the video. Okay. And nobody was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask, but at the time I think everybody was like, we're good. We are vaccinated and this is the whole thing we were waiting for. Then of course, new strains. We had Delta, bam. I was still kind of out and about, but it was like, okay, well, hopefully it's all right. And then Omicron, of course. And then I locked the fuck back down. And a lot of that too was to do with the fact that I had a very exciting family thing happen. Hold your applause. Let's just say it's really not me. So my sister and her husband had a wonderful bebe together, adorable sweetie pie. And listen, we knew who was coming, right? That's the thing about babies. They grow inside the womb, for up to 9 months. And so we were kind of anticipating, it's going to happen in December. Then he came a little early. It was October 31st, Halloween baby, a little pumpkin erupting from, little pumpkin erupting from its sack. And, just a blessing. I love it. I'm going to talk about it. You know what I mean? I'm going to talk about it. Here's the thing. A couple things. I've never really dealt with a baby before, obviously, because I'm the baby. You know what I mean? I have always been the baby, even within my extended family. So, of course, I only have an older sister, so I'm the baby of my family. Also, my parents are older than me, weird. And then my first cousins, all of them on both sides of my family were older. So I was always the baby. Then one of my cousins had a baby when I was on the younger side. So that was amazing, shout out. And, that was kind of the first baby I saw, but I was still young, so I don't really know. And then this is kind of the next baby. Though we've had other cousins have babies, this is kind of the first baby that I'm closest to. And what a fun time. First of all, he was a preemie. So part of the problem is with the pandemic is like, we don't really know how preemie immune systems work with Omicron or BA2 or ever cool new strains coming out, whichever one they're rolling out next. And for me personally, I'm not going to try to not, sounds like I was, but also it's like we as a family don't want to like test out these cool new strains on this baby's immune system and be like guinea pig for that. So we're just being very safe. So I kind of locked back down, taking a lot of PCR tests up the nose, just a lot of Q-tip swabs, about an inch up the nose, right? You did take them a little bit up the nose. You do 15 to 30 seconds if you're a good boy. And yeah, I'm getting my negative results. And so far, knock on wood, I mean, I've been lucky. I haven't had Omicron, COVID, Corona, whatever, pick your poison. But man, another fun thing about this baby. So I hadn't dealt with a baby before, and I was a little like, oh, I mean, there are parts of me that I was always worried as a youngest child, like if I were to have another younger sibling, like I think I'd probably have to fight them. You know what I mean? We'd have to battle it out for resources, so I really didn't want that to happen, and it didn't happen. So all the wishing and praying worked, no, but so then when this baby came into the picture, of course, I'm like, wow, I haven't even thought about, I always assumed I wouldn't get along with babies because I never even considered them not as competition for resources, but this baby, obviously, I love, I've gotten to do all the fun things like feed the baby the bottle and burp the baby and play with the baby. And it lives up to the hype, you know what I mean? That being said, and also my sister is just such a natural, so good with the baby, so cute. So many good pics, so many good photos, lots of WhatsApp sharing, family stuff. But okay, here's what the big question is, right, for the listeners out there who might be considering having their own bebe, their own BB. Does it, or you have one. This isn't for you. If you have one, right? I guess what it is it's like, the fun thing about being a younger sibling is you really get to kind of test drive life through your older sibling. So Melissa, my older sister, who was on the podcast, check it out, episode, I'll insert the number later. She's kind of gone through life, taking the hits for me. You know what I mean? First things first, when she was in elementary school, she said she didn't know life went beyond 6th grade. And then who do you know? She went to 7th grade, right? But she had to be the pioneer to break down those barriers versus me. I knew there was life beyond 6th grade because my sister existed. So by the time I was in 7th grade, I was like, there's a 7th grade because Melissa's in 7th grade, Not only that, college, right? I get to see my sister go through the application process. So I had a much better understanding of oh, I see. So we got to take those tests and you got to write those essays. And then you go when you actually go to college. So that's a thing that happens, All these things I got to experience through my sister's eyes first. And then later follow in her footsteps. So, and I mean, this could be good or bad, right? I certainly had teachers who were like, Melissa was really good. And you're kind of, what are you doing? Why are you reading in my class or doing some extra shit? That has nothing to do with this. Anyway. Definitely ran into some problems too, but mostly good, right? Now comes along this baby. And the fact is, it's true. Again, I must say, I get to kind of see, what is motherhood? What is parenting? What is birth? My sister had a C-section. What is C-section? What is baby? All these things I kind of get to see up close and personal without having to have the responsibility. I come home, right? I hang out. We have a little bit of fun. I did stay over there for a few days. Thank you for letting me stay. But, of course, I was able to return home and be like, okay, well, send me the good vids. I'll be asleep, and I think that's what auntiehood is all about. And I must say, the big news is that I'm going by Ayi, which is auntie in, it's definitely auntie in Cantonese. I don't know if it's auntie in Mandarin. I thought going in, and this is the case with me and a lot of Chinese words with my family, and Japanese words, honestly, too, because, I'm 4th generation, so there's been a lot of removal between us speaking these languages fluently, which we used to speak as a family, right? There's been just hit my little prop. Whew. This new studio, you got to break it in. But yeah, so with certain words, I actually would think and attribute them to a language when it wasn't what it was, or I just didn't know the definition. I remember my dad would say Gesundheit a lot, Gesundheit, after you sneeze. And I thought, well, my dad's Japanese, so obviously that's a Japanese word because it ain't an English word. It turns out it's a German word. Okay, so I was wrong. But a yi, I thought for so long it was like a specific auntie. I thought it meant I thought it meant mom's younger sister, because oftentimes well, specifically in Chinese, there are a lot of like specific familial titles, which is cool, because kind of in English we're just like auntie, uncle, and that could be like your mom's cousin, that could be your mom's brother. It doesn't really, they don't distinguish other than like gender, I suppose. So I thought this was a very specific mom's younger sister, so I was like, oh, I want that one. It turns out it's not. I think that's another word. But this is kind of the generic auntie. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, honestly. I know nothing. So that's been fun. That's the big family update. And I gotta say, huge fan of that update. Getting to preview the mother thing is interesting. And yeah, I think that's the reality. So my conclusion is, haven't made up my mind yet. And I think I thought once I saw all of this, I'd be right away I thought I'd be all the way, yes. I thought I'd see the baby and be like, oh, one of those. Give me one of those. I'll do it, Honestly, there's nothing against this baby. I think if anything, this baby makes it like, ooh, but that baby's pretty cool. So I don't know. Maybe I could just kind of hang out with that baby. That baby's here already. You know what I mean? So that's maybe what it is. Maybe this baby is too cute that it displaces future babies. Something to think about. It's an interesting form of birth control, right? Babies that are already too cute, they take up the cuteness allotment, and you go, yeah, I'm good actually. I don't need to keep making those. That's a good one. I like it. The pie chart of babies. I guess it's what do they say? Scarcity of resources when it comes to cute babies, right? You only have enough love you have limited love for cute babies. All right. So, okay, finally we have the guest. And the guest, you already know because it's in the title of the show, but he's from the Stevie Wiebe show, and I actually got to do his podcast not too long ago. So please check that out. We talk stand-up on that, and it's a lot of fun, and he's fun, and yeah, I had a good time, okay? I had a good time. So as a result, I was like, oh, hey, maybe this is a good opportunity to ask him onto my show and then kick off the show with his interview, because he's got such a great podcast presence. Not only does he do the Stevie Wiebe show, he also does Scissor Bros with Jeremiah Watkins, also a hilarious comedian. Stevie Wiebe is a comedian. He is a podcaster. He's a musician. You might know his music. Check out that as well. And we talk about that. And he has a lot of fascinating stories just because he's kind of done so many different things. We also talk about his wrestling career, which is interesting. I'm always fascinated about, I think, people who grew up doing sports. I think that's a huge part of American culture is doing sports in high school, elementary school. But because of my experience doing a sport that I just always felt was like, why was I doing basketball when I was like at least 50% smaller than everyone, than the next person bigger than me in my grade who didn't even play basketball? Because of that part of my personal history, I always just am, interested in it. I think we both learned a lot from it. And Stevie in particular was not just like a wrestling player in his high school. He was like a state champion. So that's also a whole nother aspect of it in wrestling, right? But finally, here's the interview with Stevie Wiebe. And shout out to Stevie Wiebe for being on the show. Thanks for doing Stay Podsitive.
Yeah, anything you want. Yeah. I like to be prompt.
Awesome.
You know what I
mean? You're here. You're 10 minutes early. You could have been 20 minutes early, but I wasn't even ready.
Oh yeah, I could have.
You could have done this hours ago.
For me personally, because I know how guests can be, like, because I've tried reaching out to guests in the past, and some of them don't return, your message to the message right away. So
sure.
With me, I try to jump on it and be like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Yeah, you were very prompt, and I was very happy.
See, thank you.
And also, when I went to do your podcast, it was clear you're on it. You have your setup.
Yeah, people liked it. Did you have a good time?
I had a great time on your podcast. Thanks for having me on the Stevie Wiebe show.
Anytime, you're always welcome.
Oh man, what a joy!
You're always welcome.
Great setup you got there too. I enjoyed the the backdrop, you still have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a dormitory, but I'm not in college anymore, so.
No, I think it's a good aesthetic to keep.
yeah, I kind of kept that, I guess, a man cave skateboarding musical aesthetic.
Yeah, it's good. Do you feel like that's something
Yeah.
you intentionally kept, or is that something that you sort of accumulated from just what you like?
Oh no, it was based off of fear
Yeah, I love
because
that admission right away. Yeah, based off of fear.
yeah, when I decided to do a podcast, it was out of fear because I was in a band, still am with called Mongchi with David Cho, Money Mark, and a couple other great people.
Amazing. Shout out.
We were doing Steve Aoki, the DJ.
Yeah, heard of him.
Yeah, he brought our band out to do a show at Fashion Week in New York.
Oh, cool.
That in itself was a weird experience because we had to perform. Imagine performing at like Devil Wears Prada, like an event like that.
Like a runway, was there a catwalk with
Yes.
models and stuff? Yeah, I mean, New York
Yes.
Fashion Week, that's where fashion goes to be itself. I have no idea what the log line would be, but
No,
it seems
no,
like
you
the
hit
spot.
it right on the
right?
bullseye. It was a fashion show, but it was even weirder because there was these skateboarding ramps. We had to perform on top of these ramps, and so they hired skateboarding actors or professionals to be skating while the band was performing, and then afterwards, he presented his new clothing line, Dim Mock, I think was the name of it, Dim Mock clothing. So he came out as like this Christ figure, where maybe he was even wearing a robe. I don't know, but he was like he bowed to them, and
good.
it was really weird.
I mean, yeah,
So
he's got
to
the
add-
Jesus look already with the hair and everything.
Yeah, and then he has that vibe, like people really worship him.
I see, yeah.
Shout out to Stevie Aoki.
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah. He'll hopefully be listening.
He's doing his thing. So so we did that show. We had an additional show outside of the fashion show, but on the plane ride back to LAX, I had received an email notification from Dave's manager saying, "Yeah, we're done with the band,"
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
and that was like my bread and butter at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out what I was going to do, and I was on the airplane, and I don't know why I thought of it, but I'm like, oh, I'll just do a podcast.
Yeah.
So I turned to Money Mark and I go, hey Mark, if I start a podcast, will you be my first guest? And then he accepted. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So right then and there, immediately you had your next project. That's pretty, that's
Well, I made
quick.
a conscious decision.
Yeah. Right. I mean, yeah,
I made
you
a conscious
created your
decision
next
to
project.
do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But see, I mean, I feel like there's normally like a mulling period or a mourning period after something dies, a sense of like,
Oh yeah,
no,
and
what am I
I've
gonna
dealt with
do?
that too. Yeah.
What?
With my father and everything. That was
Oh,
that
well,
was a
actual
whole,
person died.
Yeah,
too.
that was
Yes,
a
of
real
course.
real
Oh,
mourning.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I'm sorry about your dad again.
Oh no,
I'm
no,
sure
it's a part
still-
of life.
oh,
It's a
sure.
life cycle. Yeah.
But-
We look like family right now.
Yeah, I take that as a compliment.
You could probably pass as my sister if I had a sister.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to be a Lee sister. That'd be very fun. I have some family members with the last name Lee, so who knows?
Really?
Maybe we are
Oh,
related.
what's your ethnicity again? I know I asked you.
Chinese and Japanese. So not Korean, unfortunately.
But I have 10% blood.
Right, you did
Japanese
say
blood.
you took a test.
10% Japanese blood.
Yikes. Uh-huh. How do you
Yeah,
feel
my
about
brother
that?
took a DNA, like one of those new
Right,
businesses where you
23andMe,
could submit
Ancestry.com,
DNA
whatever. Uh-huh.
place. Yeah. So we were in Hawaii, and he had found out the results. Keep in mind, for context, Koreans have a lot of pride in being Korean and being 100% Korean.
Yeah,
Korea,
as you should.
Korea.
Uh-huh.
So when we had found that out, my brother showed us at the hotel, and I thought it was actually cool. I'm like, oh, because I have Japanese homies, I got Chinese homies,
Right.
I have a lot of different Asian homies.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the history that my mom and dad had being from Korea.
Right.
But when my mom found that out, like, she freaked out. She was trying to backtrack the history, the lineage, and all that shit, I'm sorry,
Right.
I
Where
won't
does that
curse
come?
anymore.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. I think it's like part of your identity, right? And then when somebody tells you, hey, by the way, this thing that you kind of took as fact, 10% of it is like
Yeah.
the enemy, right? I mean, that can
Well,
be...
yeah, well, according to them, because of the war, the
Right,
Korean
no, I know,
War,
for that time,
World
it
War
was
II, all
the
that
enemy.
stuff. But like, we're not from that generation.
We're not.
I don't
And
know.
I mean, I'm half Chinese, half Japanese, where technically, they were enemies, of course. But even in my parents.
Oh, that's right, because they occupied parts of China as well.
Yeah, as well, yes. And even my parents didn't necessarily think in that way because they had been. I mean, I'm fourth generation, so they had been removed from that even within their families. So like my Japanese ancestry was here in the camps, So they were doing they were part of the bad guys.
The occupation.
I feel like I have to, put that out there for my Korean American
fine.
guest here, but 10% Japanese guest.
So is your mother Japanese, or which one? Is which?
Mother is Chinese, dad is Japanese.
Oh, okay.
Fun times.
Have you been to Japan? Did I ask you that?
We did talk about it briefly, but I only went
Okay.
once, so I didn't have a lot of insight. But I know you. Well, what about you? How?
No, I want to. I've been to
go.
Korea several times.
But you've been to. Okay, got it.
But I would love to go to Japan, like Tokyo. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think,
heard it's the future over there. I want to check that out.
Yeah, hopefully we can one of these days. When everything clears up. I mean, I think what's interesting about, I think now though, is it does feel like there's more of, like you said, there's more of the Asian homies. We're kind of across the board, like this more Pan-Asian thing in America, right? Do you feel like that's changed over the past few, I don't know, decades, or what do you think?
Absolutely, because, we're both, I grew up in San Diego, and you grew up somewhere on the east.
Yeah. No, I'm out here as well. I grew up in La Cañada, California.
Oh yeah, that's right. So we, just, were there a lot of Asians in your high school?
There were a lot of Koreans. My first boyfriend, Korean.
Right. So, my high school, because this was Poway, didn't have a lot, but the ones that were there, like, I was homies with.
Got it. Yeah, I band together in the Poway streets.
Yeah, even my neighbor, Van Young, he was Chinese, and he was on the wrestling team too, so we were close.
Oh, right. Yeah, you wrestled.
Yeah, I wrestled.
You're a big
quite
star.
extensively in the San Diego section. Yeah, in the '90s. Yeah.
What was happening? Paint the picture. Were you fighting the kid on the playground?
I was the lowest weight class back. It was 65.
Oh, you're just yeah. That's good.
They needed a little guy.
You need the little guy. Yeah.
So this guy, I think his name was Brandon Wheatek. Shout out to Brandon. I don't know if he's going to watch the interview or not.
He will.
He might
him.
not. I don't know.
Don't
We'll see. He mentioned that, hey, we need a little guy. You got to show up to the gym.
Nice.
And so I literally had no training, but I guess like my instincts kind of took over. Just, I don't know. I won. I don't know how I won, but I won. And the high school coach happened to see that match. So
like,
I'm a little guy, and he took note of me. So once the coach has you in his grasp, you're gonna be on his radar. Right.
He's gonna start cultivating that wrestling power.
I like that word. Yeah, he did kind of cultivate that progression.
That's a lot of pressure too, though. I mean, I can understand that being kind of fun because you're like it's like you have this superpower that you weren't sure of before. You didn't even know you had. But then
I like that you brought that up.
Tough.
I like the way you worded that. Yeah, it is kind of like superpowers because of the technique involved. Like, people think of wrestling like WWE or WWF. Right. It's not like that. It's a real combat. It's a real thing. You need technique. There's rules. There's a point system. So as a kid, you have to learn the basics, which you start on your feet. So there's the takedown aspect, there's the escape aspect, and there's the riding aspect as well.
I see. I could see that being very useful overall, just for do you feel like it factors into self-defense at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
not only self-defense,
okay,
even in MMA, the mixed martial arts world, it's predominantly, a lot of it's wrestling.
Okay, yeah, it seems like it's similar in the style of just like, you got to take down this guy. And I do feel, okay, so here's where I'm coming from when I bring that up, because I feel like, so I played basketball in high school, and I played it from 2nd grade to 10th grade. So it was like I was starting and quite young, but I was also in the Japanese leagues out here. And what was, for me, I was tiny. I was always the smallest person in my class by a lot. like half the way to the next kid up, you
Me
know?
too.
Yeah. So we're, clearly not cut out for your typical sport. But basketball, especially, I was small, I was short, and I was very, skilled at ball handling and all the things, and I was smart at whatever strategy. But to me, I knew there was no future. Like, it was like a very strange thing that I pursued for so long, knowing that I couldn't really get much skill out of it. Like, I couldn't even get self-defense out of it, right? Or MMA. Like, it was just basketball.
Yeah.
And basketball, you're in shape, so that translates to something, but you're really not, like, learning a skill that could, like, benefit me later on. So now when I look back on it, though, I still feel like it gave me, camaraderie with friends that I still know today, and teamwork mentality, and like, the sense of working towards something physically, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. But I can imagine, I mean, luckily wrestling has some more direct skills, but like, did you have other things where you're like, I'm so happy that I pushed myself at that age, or not, because I could see it being also very damaging?
Well, yeah, it was damaging in the sense where there's a lot of pressure as far as when you make it outside of the section, like San Diego section. Other states have different like 3 or 4 different state tournaments, but California only has one. So it is a huge state, as we all know.
Yeah, and you got to beat all those other little kids.
Yeah, so if you win the California state championship, you're a badass. You're like,
right.
You really won state.
Thing. Yeah. So then did you have to do all that shit where you got to like sweat out your water weight?
Oh yeah.
God,
I was
that
wearing
seemed
plastics.
like hell.
And I was running up mountains. Yeah, it was a whole.
God.
It was horrific.
It's a lot.
But I was ranked second in the state my senior year.
Oh yeah, you did.
So in
wow,
California,
that's
I was ranked
crazy.
second. Yeah, I was ranked second in my.
You got those
weight
trophies?
division. I have medals at home. My mom
Nice,
she has the medals at home in Arizona.
I love to hear it.
What ended up happening, I did well in the previous tournaments, CIF and Masters of the San Diego sections tournaments, but every time I went to state, I choked. Then let me add to that. So when I choked my senior year, I didn't even place. All the guys that had placed top 8, because I think they give, it's the top 8, those are the All-Americans. All those guys I had beaten throughout the year, like earlier on the year. Like I had beaten all those guys that had placed. Mm-hmm. So I remember vividly watching the award ceremony and from a distance in the stands, and just a sense of just grief and depression and sadness just entered my soul.
Oh man!
And that's when after that I got into partying, like weed and drinking beer, and basically I became an alcoholic.
Got it. Yeah, I mean it. You got to cope somehow. But yeah, that's painful. I can feel that, because I feel the same thing. We can't help but, like, I feel this way about accomplishments sometimes. We want to achieve things, right? Like you want to win state, but of course, things happen. You can't be winning all the time, and then people will catch up to you, right? Or you'll like lose against that guy that you beat the first time, or you like that person that you thought you were funnier than gets the thing, or the the thing that you auditioned against. For some person, you won it one time, and then the next year that guy gets it the second time, and you're like, well, shit, I thought I had already passed that point, but it looks like that was all for nothing. I think that like the concept of just like, oh, you win and you're the best. That's an upkeep. Like, we have to keep working at that, and that's frustrating because I would love to just...
In hindsight, I'm glad that it happened, because there's not a big future. At least back then, there wasn't a big future for wrestling at the time. Like if let's play devil's advocate. Let's say I had won the state tournament. What do I do next? I could wrestle in college, right? Maybe try to become an All-American, wrestle for a prestigious state or a university, college. But then even after that, what do? You could either coach, or you know what I'm saying, or wrestle internationally.
Yeah, a lot of sports are like that. Yeah, I just feel like a lot of sports, especially high school level, there's so many that get funneled into college that, like, a fraction of those make it into college, a fraction of those make it pro.
I'm glad you brought that up. But
sport isn't even pro.
Even in college, if you're playing basketball, at least there's a chance you could go to the NBA or something.
Right. Like,
but in wrestling, there's none of that in wrestling. You can't. You can either coach, wrestle freestyle Greco-Roman internationally, and that's about it.
Right. That's not it's not like a career sport in the same way.
not
I mean, I felt
sustainable.
that way about basketball, even though I didn't even make it to my varsity team. I was just like, it's interesting thinking like in high school, we're training to go to college. At least, I felt like I was like, okay, well, I have good grades, so then I can get a good job. But it's like this basketball shit. Like, what am I going to be playing the NBA? I can't even.
That would have been amazing, though.
Even if I play in the WNBA, it's not good. Yeah, but like and for women, it's like even if you make it to a pro level, you're not getting paid shit. So it's not as big of a payoff, but to make it that far, you'd have to be the best out of millions of people. Anyway, sports, man. But so I'm trying to kind of paint the picture of Stevie Wiebe, and so we have your wrestling beginnings, which sounds like it really crafted somebody who can, who knows the high highs and the low lows.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of gained some positive characteristics, like hard work, dedication, loyalty, and all that. Mm-hmm. I've always been disciplined, but I've gotten lazy over the years as well. But I get my stuff done. But I was always into music and stuff like that, and so I actually started pursuing that on like a local Arizona level. When I attended ASU, I'd go to these shows. I'm a big like the poster behind me, like I love like A Tribe Called Quest, Beastie Boys, The Far Side, Boogie Monsters, Wu-Tang Clan, like you name it. Like I got into that. Diggable Planets. I got into like a certain specific genre of hip hop. It's kind of hard to explain because now there's so many subcategories of rapping, like the trap music. But back then it was, some of my favorite recordings were from like that I would hear from my favorite acts or musicians were from like a tape 4 tracks or whatnot, like 4 tracks, 8 tracks. So there's a local scene in Tempe, Arizona. So I used to go to these shows. And then I started trying to record. I met a group of other musicians and rappers and DJs, and I got into that as well in Arizona.
Yeah.
I was basically thrown into a rap group called Rising Sun, and we had made a tape. And then years later, I met other groups of a lot of other Asian artists as well, other rappers and DJs, and then I became a part of that. But it was just something. It's something that just kind of fell in my lap. The first group, I was the only Asian. It was like all black dudes and then one little Asian guy.
Nice.
Have you seen Indiana Jones Temple of Doom?
Oh yeah. So you're him.
What did they call the little guy in that? The Asian guy.
Yeah. What's that guy's name?
Short Round.
Yeah. There we go.
So that was my
Short
nickname,
Round.
Short Round.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we
That's
had
the one
recorded
other
a tape.
prominent Asian.
Did a couple local shows. We even performed at ASU in some kind of rec hall place. Yeah.
Cool.
So we did that years later. Then I met some other peeps. Shout out to my man Ohm and Mestizo. They're artists as well. And so we continued that tradition. But by then, can I grab the machine where I actually this is the first machine that I got. Hold on.
Ooh, show and tell. Love it. Yeah. Coming ready with the props. Oh.
So this is the
Nice.
Machine I bought at ASU off my friend Ken from New York. He was a DJ, and this is what you would call a sampler. So the way it works is you could even put batteries in the back of it, AA batteries. But the way this worked was a lot of old producers back in the day, this is what you would call a sampler. So on one, there's 8 buttons. On each button, you could sample whatever you wanted. So there's a learning curve as well with this. So on one button, you could get the beat portion of the beat, like the break beat. And on the other buttons, you could find jazz samples and stuff. And so you would collage. It's like a collage machine. You would sample, then make your own collages on it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've seen things, the like updated versions of that too.
Oh no, this
same
you can't
vibe,
find
right?
this anymore. This is this is like a dinosaur
but
bone.
yeah, sampler type.
Yeah,
thing.
from a T-Raptor's butt or something. Yeah.
Good.
This is an old artifact.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for bringing
Nowadays,
in the
you don't even
authentic
need this. It's all
fossil.
on one computer program. You could just
Right.
sample stuff. But this is where I learned how to make beats. This thing. Like you got
one and
the
only.
visual, right?
Oh yeah, got the
Okay.
visual. Yeah, yeah. Feel free to set it down. But yeah, that's great. The Museum of Stevie
Yeah.
Wiebe. Thank you.
I just
Thank
thought
you
it'd be
for sharing.
interactive.
Oh yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
It is interactive.
So-
that's the most interaction. For
Yeah,
my
well, I wanted to
podcast.
give you
I keep it
context
pretty-
because a lot of people,
Yeah.
it helps if you give them visuals. So that thing,
Mm-hmm.
my friend in a different dorm, he was a DJ, a Japanese dude from New York, bigger fella. Shout out
Nice.
to Ken. He went by DJ Yellow Jacket. So he kind of presented like, hey, if you want, I could sell this for you too. He gave me the homie discount, like $200 or something.
Yeah.
And so I had he didn't even really use it that much. I had to learn on my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
All the things you got to be as an independent artist.
Yes.
Yeah. So now with like, because you continue to do music, and then I know spoke about the fact that like the band that you were a part of that played at New York Fashion Week ended
Yeah,
up
that
breaking
came
up.
later in life.
Okay.
You want to hear that story?
I mean, if you want to share more details, but I would say it's a very like interesting inflection point of your story, because then you said that gave you the impetus to start the Stevie Wiebe show and then podcasting, which is another big chapter, obviously. But
Yeah.
if you have more to share on that, I think it's important.
Well, the way the way I even got familiar with podcasting was my brother had we were gonna go get Korean food one night, and we were heading towards K-Town, and he was checking his phone, and he had gotten a text message from David Cho. Shout out to the Choster. And then he's like, dude, can you come with me to this thing? We'll eat after. Just come with me. I didn't even know what it was. I was just tagging along. So when I got to his studio, I just wanted to show him respect because I was a fan, still am, of his art. I mean, the guy's
incredible.
a genius. I mean, the way he paints and does his art. I mean, it's really amazing what he could produce. But so I had gotten there and I set up I shook his hand. I said, hey, it's good meeting you. I like your stuff. And I was gonna not interrupt them. I saw the mic set up. I saw their setup there. I didn't know what a podcast was. I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, because they had started it quite.
No, it
long
wasn't
time
big
ago
back
when
then.
It wasn't a thing.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I had set up a chair to put near the door into the room so I wasn't in their way. And so maybe 15, 20 minutes into it, he had called me over, like, hey, bring your brother over. And so...
Guest appearance.
Yeah, so accidentally I took part in, I guess you could call it my first podcast experience. Through that, I met people like Money Mark, and on one of the podcasts, just on a whim, or he kind of asked the group, "Hey, you guys want to record music sometime?" And we were like, "Yeah." So from that moment, we rented out a huge kind of like, imagine going to like Boy Scout camp or something in like a log cabin. Like he had rented a place in Big Bear, California. It was immaculate. Like there's different log cabins, and he had rented like I guess you would call it an Airbnb now, but he had rented this for like a week and a half. We recorded music there.
Cool.
So that's when the whole idea of Manchi came about, and it was weird because I was working at the sandwich shop Fat Sal's at the time.
Oh yeah, big Fat Sal fan. Here.
Yeah, Yeah, you've had their sandwiches.
Had their sandwiches. Oh yeah, quite a few.
What, the Fat Texas?
Fat Texas. Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite one.
The one with the mozzarella cheese sticks and the pastrami.
Yeah.
And the barbecue sauce.
French fries are in there.
Yeah, so you know there's French fries in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of obvious.
I worked there.
Well, that's great. So yeah, you probably composed many Fat Texases.
No. I was the milkshake guy.
Oh, sorry.
I was the Bruce Lee of milkshakes.
Oh, got it.
So I washed dishes, I bagged meat, I made the milkshakes, I worked the mozzarella cheese stick fryer. I did it all.
Oh. Yeah, so you were essential. You composed
it
part
was
of
hard
the Big
work.
Texas. or Fat Texas.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
yeah. I'm
hard.
sure it's laborious.
So I mean, it was a miracle I
But yeah,
got
you're
that
still
time
working there.
off. But then through me, working with these people, we had recorded an album. He'd started doing artwork for the band, and then next thing you know, like, he's asking me if I could become a part-time member on their podcast, and and so I ended up, like, doing DVD essay, like, as a member, as a member on the podcast.
A reg.
Yeah, through that, then we started. Our first show was in L.A. downtown at a big warehouse, and you know what was surprising about that show? I didn't realize people. This is the power of the internet and podcasting. People actually, a lot of people came out where there was a line down the street. So,
yeah.
So we had to do 3 shows
through the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh wow, nice.
So we did that, recording out. Next thing you know, we're renting like a huge tour bus, doing tours and stuff.
Wow, that's great. Wait, so was that sort of like because David did the artwork for the band as well? Is that what you said? So was it sort of like attached to the podcast in some ways? The band project.
It was affiliated. Yeah, that it was basically a new thing where. It's kind of genius if you think about it, because you already have the fan platform, that are already aware of what you're doing. But then it's kind of like they could follow the story of because they're actually hearing us talk about it on podcasts. Yeah, we'll do this, and then they're following the whole journey as you go.
Yeah, it's like seeing the band documentary as it's also recording live. Yeah.
As it's progressing. Yeah.
Did you find like some of the similar tropes that people talk about being on tour, where it can be kind of lonesome, or were you guys like kind of doing one-off things where you were all together and it was a lot of fun?
We had a tour bus, so we didn't have your regular experience. I mean, we had a Motley Crue tour bus, like with bunks.
Yeah.
So we had
got it. So that's like the tour life. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Dave hooked it up. Yeah, we were touring like we were like BTS or something, like we were touring like we already made it or something.
No, that's great. Well, then is it true that you can't poop on the tour bus?
Yeah, because of the way the system of the bus works, because of it's a tank system.
Somebody has to
so
clean
we
it,
would
the
we go to
driver.
truck stops, or we would just go to the next destination to do that, or at the venue, like during sound check, or at the hotel. I mean, that's the thing. We weren't just sleeping in the tour bus. We got hotel rooms.
I see. Oh yeah. Yeah. So you're a full like touring band.
Oh, we got the red carpet
by
treatment.
day one.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was
I didn't
really
clock
awkward
that.
because we were touring as if we were BTS or a group that had made it, but then we'd
Why
show up
not?
to a lot of these venues, like at these dive bars that will only held 200 people. It's just a weird visual of a tour bus pulling up to this smaller venue.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Not the usual type of band to perform there, but hey, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, typically it'd be a van.
Why not you?
Like it'd be like a shitty white van that pulls up.
Sure.
But we had
More
like
manageable.
the whole tour bus. Yeah, we were definitely pampered. Yeah.
That's great. No, I mean that's awesome. Not many people get to live that life. I feel like.
Oh, so
even,
shout out again to Dave Cho and Money
Yeah,
and also
yeah.
all of them. They hooked it up.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess getting to the end of the beautiful rock star story. It did.
It did come to an end. It is like we're on a hiatus, but it did come to an end.
Okay.
But then it was a wise decision. Like back after we did Aoki's show, that I did podcasts, because now I had kind of like a security blanket where I started at the as time went, I started building up the platform. Then I started doing other podcasts, so that became kind of like my bread and butter as well.
Yeah. I mean, and what do you think of these phases of your life? Do you find like a thread throughout? Because I feel like it seems like what's nice is you haven't kind of boxed yourself into one thing. I think it's very easy, and even as I am continuing to I feel like I've always been happy with doing a lot of different things and being a little spread thin. But as I get older, I think there's a little bit of a natural pressure to be like, find your thing and stick to it, And did you have those voices? Like, were people saying that, or were you feeling that in any way? Or was it just sort of natural that you're like, I do all these things, I'm going to jump to the next thing. It's not that different.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to everything you just said there. Because even in like the rap world, I used to look up to, people who've made it, and they even say, you need several hustles. So yeah, by me just on a whim doing the podcast thing, other doors started opening up. Like, shout out to Jeremiah Watkins. I started a podcast called Scissor Brothers with him, and then I'm also doing King and the Sting. So, and then I just went on. I just got off an airplane, and we now we're starting to do these live podcast events. This is Scissor Bros.
Yeah.
So we just did. Oh my God. Yeah, we just did Jeffersonville at Soul Joel's in Jeffersonville, Pennsylvania. So it's a rather new thing, new phenomenon. I know other podcasts have done it. It's not that new, but we're starting to kind of build up momentum doing that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's the dream. I feel like you have lived the rock star life already, though, so maybe it's not as novel to you. But I feel like being able to
all those opportunities.
Tour again. Yeah, no, but yeah, you're touring again in another capacity to fans who are coming out to see you, lining up around the block again, right? It's like,
well, not like that. We're
flavor.
building a little cult following. Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, we're building.
Sure, the line, it will grow, but I mean, you just close the doors and make them line up outside.
It's
and then
a
the line
new
will be
thing.
longer,
It's new because it's a bit weird. I'm still getting accustomed to it because imagine us talking right now. Let's say you were physically here. Right. Imagine when you're here that night doing my podcast, there was like a bunch of people just watching us,
sitting there
like
waiting.
A deer in headlights or something.
Right. And I know we did talk a little bit about like that factor, but I mean, have you found that like it's been more natural? Like obviously it's a different dynamic than just you and Jeremiah together in a studio, but you and Jeremiah on a stage, like you maybe pander to the audience a little bit more, like have you found it kind of come naturally? Because I mean, you're a performer. It's probably not too different from live performing music or live performing stand-up.
It's similar and different in a lot of ways. The main thing is being comfortable enough where you don't pander to them like all the time. Like, hey, what do you guys think about this? It's kind of like you need
it'd be too hard.
You need a balance
engage.
Where you have to because keep in mind, the people who bought tickets want to see a podcast.
Right.
So you kind of still have to do the typical podcasting, but it's kind of a fine line between staying true to that formula, but then also not ignoring them completely.
Right, because they are there. I mean, have you found that like they'll burst out laughing at something that you guys would usually laugh at, but not necessarily like pause to wait for like an audience to laugh at?
That's a good question. Well, Jeremiah, because he's so good at crowd work with his stand-up, I'm not quite there at all. I've done music shows like rap shows, and I've dabbled in stand-up, but not to the extent of him. Like he's a touring headliner now, basically. Sure. So to answer your question, it's difficult for me more so because I'm still trying to get my chops on stage in that sense. There's a different sensibility when you're doing comedy or, because in music you can hide behind the music if you mess up. You can always hide behind the music. With a stand-up or live podcast show, there's so much silence and dead air.
Oh, even still, you feel there might be some dead air with the podcasting. I mean, I just thought, you guys are bantering.
We do banter.
You maybe can't fit a word in. No. But yeah, it could be the opposite.
Yeah, we are bantering, but he has more better chops because he's used to being in the pocket and being in those scenarios. But I'm learning. I'm getting a little bit better. I'm learning.
Oh, of course. I mean, I can imagine that it'll, in no time.
In our defense, we do a lot of crowd participation. We do challenges. We have a dance break. We have a cookie donut break. So there is
lots of engagement.
Yeah, on stage. So there's an aspect of more crowd involvement with the Scissor Bros live podcast. where
yeah, that's great.
where we involve them.
I think it should be that way.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, if, I don't know, again, never done it, but I feel like, if you're buying a ticket to go see a live show, it could be fun to be engaged in it more rather than like, they could just get better audio listening to you guys at home.
Yeah.
If they just want to see Steve and Jeremiah shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Right. But if they're coming to your show, like it's fun if they get to be involved a little bit or they get to see something they wouldn't normally see by just listening to a regular episode. Write it down, sell it.
You just basically all in a nutshell. You just said it.
But
right, yeah,
perfect.
you basically
feel free to use that for your next promo.
That was a good review of the whole theme of the
yeah.
topic.
This is what you're gonna get when you go see Scissor Bros live.
I've noticed that some of the crowd participants that come out to these events, they're fans of some of the other stuff we've done. Like there's fans solely there for Jeremiah. There's fans solely there, like Manchi fans. Cool. I saw one of them she was wearing a Manchi T-shirt at our show like a few days ago.
Nice. Uh-huh.
And there's King and the Sting fans because I plug it on each of these platforms.
Right. And
where
like, hey, well,
so it's a mixed bag of people.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. Like, do you feel like that's? I mean, how do you feel about that? Is it better, worse?
That's actually a good question. I like it because it's, they're showing support. I just don't know. It's kind of, not overwhelming. It's just kind of shocking that we're in this time now where all these other things that we have done in the past could help this completely new thing that you're trying to do, but they'll still support it.
Right.
So it's like more like, whoa, how'd you know about that? Or you knew about the band I was in back like over 10 years ago?
No, that's cool. I mean, I feel like that's sort of, it's like when people like a certain actor and they like them from their sitcom they did, 20 years ago. And you're like, oh, really? That I'd imagine that person might feel a little like, oh, but what about my new stuff? But at the same time, it's like, well, that is still a part of you, right? It's like, that's a part of you that informs who you are, even doing your new stuff. And then they can become acquainted with the new stuff. But
yeah, we also implement musicality in our live podcast shows. So I'll give you an example. Like we had these two characters, and then we actually wrote kind of a rap thing for them. And so we do add music, not in the sense of like a all music show by any means, but we do kind of try to implement. Like, he has an improv background as well. Let me just add that. I don't have improv. He's from like these improv groups where he knows how to improvise and do these things. Get him out of there. So I'm trying to learn.
No, yeah, I know. I don't have improv background, really. I've taken like one class. And it's sort of it's a skill. And I feel like I am oftentimes working with people, especially in a writer's room, who have improv backgrounds. And I feel sometimes like, ooh, that's the skill to learn because it does, kind of help with these, like coming up with ideas on the spot. That being said, I don't think it's something that I don't think it's something you need formal training for. And you can kind of get the rhythms, right, by just being on the spot with the audience staring at you being like, be funny, Steve. Entertain us.
You know what I noticed too? That's funny. You're bringing up some really good points. Usually when I get the laughs, it's when I'm just being normal and not trying to.
Great.
Like just kind of being myself and not like, hey, I'm going to say something funny. Please laugh.
No, I see what you mean though. I think that people, and you are one of these people, so gifted, which is, you kind of are naturally funny, effortlessly funny. And sometimes what's funny about you might be that you don't think you're being funny in that moment. So to laugh in that thing is like, wow, this guy's being so authentic. Like, we're not like getting a clown who's just like ready with the punchline. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's really unique.
I'm not that guy.
That's in demand, my friend.
Yeah,
that's more useful than any improv training.
Right.
Mr. Watkins.
No. We got to give him respect. You too. But on the flip side, you brought up some great points. That's why when I recently took a shot at stand-up again, I was in a weird headspace because it's kind of like when you're doing specifically a stand-up show, it's like the crowd knows, he wants or she wants a laugh.
Right.
You know what? Prove it to me. Let me see your setup
see.
line. Then I'll decide whether I laugh. It's more of like, it's kind of like, it's a conundrum because usually I don't know when I'm being funny, but in stand-up, they know that you're expecting to be funny and you have to be funny, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the expectations make it tough, but it's also, it depends because I think certain things that are funny in stand-up on stage aren't funny off stage. Because they're also expecting a certain type of stand-up, which is not a normal way people talk and make people laugh. It's very much a clearly stand-up way. Not everyone is this way.
It's a formula. It's an aesthetic and formula and a certain way to do it, right?
Right. For the most part. Yeah, I mean, of course, there are obviously some stand-ups who are very out there and don't follow the formula, but there is a formula that people do hear and recognize. And there's also a look. Like, I feel like that's why, you know, a lot of us comics who aren't necessarily your, like, I don't know, John Mulaney looking kind of like goofy white guy looking thing.
You could just say, just say white guy. It's fine because I know.
White guy. Yeah.
Prominently, they're white dudes.
Probably they're white dudes. And I mean, by default, they're goofy looking. So, you know, that's what happens. And you get to do comedy. Yeah. You know, and you get to say your observation and that comes off funny somehow. Yeah. But I think sometimes you gotta work a little harder if you're not that expected archetype.
Right.
This is in mini fields. But anyway, what you're saying is totally cool, because I think that the fact that you've identified that, I think it's tough sometimes as comedians for us to know what makes us funny. And like, because sometimes we are pushing to be, I want to be John Mulaney funny. I want to be straight white guy funny. And then, because that's all I've seen, say, and then
or
we
Mitch
end up
Hedberg
pushing
funny,
against,
or
specific
Bill Hicks funny
style,
yeah.
And then we end up pushing against what actually makes us funny, why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've identified that is cool. And then, I wanted to ask, what about your partnership with Jeremiah? Like, how did you guys know, hey, this is it, we're gonna like embark on this journey of doing a podcast with two hosts? Because that's a very like big undertaking, and it worked out clearly. But like, what, you know, for people kind of looking for their partner in crime, how did you know?
Well, it was just an accident because he had done research. He had been following Bad Friends and Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura's podcast. I forgot the name of it. Two Bears, One Cave, I think.
Oh, yeah. That sounds right.
So on April Fools, they were planning on doing each other's podcasts as a joke. Like, I guess Bert and Tom had decided to go on Bad Friends on their set, and then it was gonna be interchangeable.
Swap and pretend. Okay.
Yeah, pretend like an April Fool's joke. So Jeremiah had caught wind of that, and just we like forced ourselves into that trajectory.
And that's your launch point.
So we had named the first episode, They're Bad Friends, right? That's my brother Bobby and Andrew Santino. They're Bad Friends. We had made a goof and called that particular episode Good Friends.
Okay.
I think Andrew's still upset at that, but so we did that, and it worked. And then so we didn't stop. Right, we didn't plan on it, but then we had a meeting, and then he's like, "Do you want to just keep going?" And I'm like, "All right, let's keep going." So we obviously changed our names because there was, you know.
Right,
I don't want to get into the legalities or any of that, but it was too close.
You get sued.
It was too close to the other name, so we just decided with Scissor Bros because we had done each other's podcast, and then we had made a joke about cutting each other's pubes with scissors, and then so he came up with like, "Hey, we're Scissor Brothers," you know?
Yeah. Rolls off the tongue.
And so, I thought that. We're approaching 50 episodes now, and not only that, we're doing live shows on the road. Like, we have several coming up. But I thought the reason why I wanted to do stand-up again is because I thought it'd be a good idea for Scissor Bros as a brand. I don't like talking like that. It's our brand or our platform.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Just so your audience members know,
I'll allow it.
What I'm talking about.
No, I love to, you know, kind of make my life into just a brand and a marketing scheme, you know. It's very romantic.
I'm using that language so, you know, people understand what we're talking about. I thought,
Sure.
well, if I do stand up again, then we could implement that in our live show. If a club is looking for that, if we need more time, I could do 10 minutes or 5 whatever minutes, then bring him on, and we could then the other half of the show we could podcast, do music or challenges or whatnot.
Oh
And
yeah,
so-
I think that's sound thinking.
Yeah, so
Makes sense.
7 years went by, and I just started doing. I did I just started doing stand up. I mean, I try to write. I mean, there are hacky bits because I started out with like your typical like small dick jokes or whatnot, and then it moved on, and I had 9 good shows, but then that one show I told you about at the lab. It was kind of like a wake-up
tough room,
call.
as I say. Yeah, improv lab, no one likes it. So if that's of any comfort. But yeah, we got to have our bad shows. As I said on your podcast, just black it out. I don't remember many of my bad shows.
It was such a surreal experience and such a painful one because
sure.
can I talk about it a little bit? I know.
Oh, yes, please.
Because I did
That's
mention
what
you.
you're
I
here for.
just I mentioned I reached out to you because as far as like relatability, and you could relate to it, and
1,000%.
yeah, Eric had a show called Eric Griffin and Friends at the lab, and that was my first show back, and I had done it, and I did it. I didn't kill, but I had a decent show the first time, so I thought, I'll just do it again.
Yeah.
And I was gonna, and the thing about it is I didn't realize as far as comedy shows, placement is everything. Your placement in the lineup.
Sure. Who are you following? Who are you?
I had the toughest spot, I thought, because I was the first guy up.
Oh, you're first. Yeah. First is very hard.
Yeah.
First is notably hard. Like the host, was somebody hosting?
He was hosting.
Oh, Eric was hosting. Well, he should have did he do like some time up top? But it's tough too. If it's his show and he's hosting, people come to go see him and they know and love Eric Griffin. He's hilarious. But like, yeah, I mean, it's always hard to go first.
Yeah, so he was breaking the ice, but you know what? And this is another thing that, because I talked to Jeremiah about it, afterwards to process it. He's like, "Did you read the room?" Because I told him like what bits I was doing, and he's like, "Ooh, yeah, those weren't good for that room."
Oh, why? What was the room and what bits were you doing?
I was doing my micro penis jokes, which was already hacky to begin with.
So do you feel like okay, all right. And then you think the room was more of a mega penis room.
No, they were just, dude, that's hacky. What else do you got?
Right. Yeah, I understand.
So
I think there's a lot of that. I would say there's a snobbery now in many audiences where they kind of feel like they know.
Oh, they were
coming to
snobby.
laugh at.
They could have been movie critics.
Sure. I mean, yeah, a lot of shows out here, LA, you're going to get a lot of people who either are in TV or film.
And so I was trying to pay attention I should have paid attention to what he was doing and the vibe of the room.
That's true, but going up first too, I would say you don't get a lot of data. You know what I mean? The later you're going in the lineup, you can see somebody else try one single micropenis joke or another joke that's a little bit less, that the room wouldn't like or whatever their highbrow comedy nerds don't like. Then you'd be like, oh shit, maybe I should change my set. But see, that also comes with experience, right? Because then you would have a lot more jokes to dig into. If you notice, hey, you know what? I'm kind of feeling like these guys aren't going to like my micropenis stuff. Let me switch over. Let me talk about
I didn't have much material, Sierra.
No, exactly. So I'm saying
I had that and maybe one other thing. That's it.
Right. So you have to do those
I understand.
things,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I understand what you're saying.
On.
I understand entirely what you're saying and your whole angle on it.
Right.
But that's all I had, basically.
Right. So I'm saying that my angle works with experience. So it's a thing that you couldn't help because you're not fully in with a bunch of years of experience. You don't have the same arsenal of jokes.
Yeah,
to dig
I
from,
know, and
right?
I understand. You guys have like different set lists. You have your 15-minute set. You have your 20-minute set.
I mean,
you have
I'm
your
not.
5-minute set. You have your 10-minute set.
Sure, people. Yeah, so that's just the thing that comes, and that's nothing anyone has over you other than time
and experience.
Yeah, and that's something you can easily do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm still licking my wounds.
It'd be different. Well, I feel like, again, we talked about this too, but I feel like me and my, many years that I've been doing this, granted, I'm trying to cut myself some slack because I started a little young and now 3 years of it are in COVID. But, I even still, like, I don't have that to lean on. So if I have a bad show, it's like, I shouldn't have a bad show at this point, even though everyone does. But there's a little
part
less
of
to
it,
lean
right?
on.
It's a part of the whole thing. It's like you're like deciding to play football, expecting not to get hit. You're gonna get hit.
You're gonna get hit. Yeah, exactly.
I got hit. I got sacked that night. I got like if I was a quarterback, I got sacked that night.
Yeah, you're dealing with some CTE.
Yeah, so he had brought me up. He goes, "Okay, our first comedian. I do a podcast with them. Please welcome." He didn't even say. And this is another thing. He didn't set me up nice as far as he didn't even say Stevie Wiebe. He's like Steve Lee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be like it could have been Steve Lee at Irvine. Irvine University. It could have just been an Asian guy. Paul Kim. Please welcome Paul Kim to the stage.
Right.
So
I'm just a comedian.
He didn't set me up nice. I mean, I love him, but he didn't. He didn't make it easy.
Sure.
So I walked up there.
I think it's always a confluence of factors. It's a lot of things.
Oh yeah. So I walked up there, tried my first thing. It didn't work. Tried my second joke. Didn't work. Tried my third joke. Bombed. And then the fourth thing, I'm like, I'm going to get him here. Because on the previous 9 shows, this thing definitely
Do you say
worked.
anything? At that point, though, when it's kind of not working, do you
I try to do crowd work.
Acknowledge it a little bit?
I was trying to do crowd work. But the
I
guy I picked to do the crowd work, Eric had already had a weird vibe with the guy. He was like this older Filipino dude. And so on the fourth joke, when it didn't work, I tried to go into the crowd to that guy that wasn't wanting to participate. And he heckled me.
Oof. What'd he say?
He said, and this is the thing, I didn't even acknowledge it because I had turned my back to him to try to go to the other part of the room. This is what he said. He goes, because I was talking about like, the micro penis jokes. You know what he said? He said, "Good luck with that."
What a heckle. We don't love it. I don't love it.
So he had said that, and it's even worse. I didn't know this. I mean, you would have like handled it way different. You would have had comeback lines, or you would have acknowledged it. I completely ignored that he even said that.
Sure, and that's one way to do it too. I've ignored it before too. Because I think sometimes that can be in your favor if you don't want to if it's getting really out of hand. Sometimes it's good to kind of move past it so that they kind of shut up.
Yeah, so it was like a bad dream. You know what it felt like? It felt like a Twilight Zone episode where the room, it was like it just turned. Everything turns into slow motion, like wow, wow. Like it was like a bad dream, like you know. And so I started to kind of panic, where I started freestyling. I started trying. I got so desperate, and they completely knew I was desperate. They felt that energy from me.
Oh, sure, yeah.
They knew. They knew they had me.
They'll devour you.
Like, we see your vulnerabilities. The 2 gals in front. Oh my God! I couldn't even look at them. When I did look at them, they had their legs crossed like this, and they're like,
"Oh no,
no, honey, that's not going to work tonight. No. What else do you got?"
Nice. Yeah, that's tough.
So they had that. I was getting that vibe, but then I just started trying to freestyle. Because, I'm used to, let's say in a music show, if I fuck up my lines, I'll just freestyle or come up with something. So I was trying anything and everything.
Tough in stand up.
I was just coming up with shit. Like, you know what? I feel like I'm in a Korean spa, and you guys are all mad at me, and I was just coming up with random shit just to say. And so I was doing that, and then it was getting quieter and quieter and quieter. So I think I might have done a minute and a half, or not even 2 minutes.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And one thing that I was smart about, because I took the L. I just said, okay, that's my time, everyone. Bye. And so I noticed I had walked. You know how the room setup is, right? There's that bar on the side. Yeah. So I went to the side of that bar, and then I tried to beeline it up to the green room up there.
Okay. And
I noticed that the laughs that I did get were only from the comedians. because they.
That's fun.
So it was.
They can see you die.
You know a guy named Craig Conant?
Yeah, Craig Conant.
Yeah, Craig Conant. Like when I walked up there, he was laughing at me. He was laughing with me.
I mean, yeah.
He was laughing with me.
Because we're like, yeah, because if we see something like that, we've all been there. You know what I mean? So I think there's a sort of laughter of like there's a release. There's a like, hey, I see you, man. I got you.
Yeah, and then I go, why are you laughing?
It's bad.
I got defensive. At first, I got defensive. I'm like, what the fuck are you laughing at, dude? He goes, I'm so sorry, man. I felt your pain. We've just all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Man, you know, and it makes me think about your guys' psychology, the way y'all think about I'm just assuming that for some comedians love it when other comedians bomb more than if they have a good show.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a competitive nature to it. So sometimes seeing somebody have a really good show might be a little like you start to question yourself. Oh God, I'm not that good. Does that mean I'm a bad comedian? So that's all ego. But then second, I think seeing somebody bomb, yeah, there's like sort of a camaraderie in it. It's like watching people go through the same hazing you're going through. It's like not a good place to be, but you're definitely like bonded more because we've all been through it.
Right. And then you know the female comedian Violet Jones, she used to be known as Vanessa Johnson. She tried to like kind of console me and comfort me, and because she was saying it was almost like sympathetic. Like kind of like, oh, Steve, I'm so sorry. You know what will help is there's an open mic on Sunset. You know, I think it would be really good if you start trying to MC that or do time there.
Oh, wow.
It's a good platform. It's a good venue. You know, I'll put a good word in for you. You should start, you know, like she had at least a solution to what it was embarrassing.
She had a plan.
Yeah.
That can also be even worse because you're like, wow, you're really taking pity on me. No, okay. I think this is great that we talked through this. I think that what I'm noticing already is like, you got off stage relatively quickly, which is respectable. Like, I think that's something a lot of people wouldn't know to do that. And I think what is the right thing to do in that situation is to get off. I think so. Because I think it's tough. It's like either you prolong it, but it sounded like you were kind of like, listen, I said the jokes I was going to say. I tried to save it with my own improv, but it didn't work. And then you got off stage. And that's all that anybody can ask for, especially the host of the show. You know, I think that like when people bomb on your show, you're kind of like, ooh, can you please get off stage so that we can move on from this? And you did. So that's already, you know, you did it. But, you know, yeah, we all go through that, and I don't want you to linger on it.
No. Can I turn it into a more positive light?
Stay positive, you know what we say here.
Since that horrific experience, but it wasn't that horrific because I'm looking at it differently.
No.
Since that experience, it forced me to get off of that material and to write something different, to write new shit.
That's great. I think that's what a lot of new material comes from, is like having like a shit time on stage and you're just like, oh, okay, I can't be doing this anymore. You know, it comes out of panic, necessity, and fear, which is what a lot of beautiful art comes from, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you found a weird way to dig yourself out.
And I'm glad I went through that because I understood, like, yeah, that was the stuff it was hacky, you know. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's the stuff because that's all I could think of. I didn't have that much planning. There was not a lot of planning involved. I just threw myself on stage because I had all these opportunities where people, you know, on bigger podcasts are like, hey, you want to do a set here? Hey, you could do a 5-minute set here. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I just say yes to everything.
Sure. No, I think that's great. I think it's good to, you know, take those opportunities because that will force you to then write new stuff. You know, I mean, I see a lot of my own stand-up as created out of like, oh shit, I booked this show, so I got to go do that. So I better have something ready, you know?
Right.
I think it's like, I'm rarely somebody to be like, all right. And then at 8:30 a.m. I sit down and write a joke. Like nobody does that. Yeah. People do, but not me.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like completely obsess about it or like, I don't want to, we don't have to stay on it too long. I would, it would be weird if I didn't bring it up. Like, because we had, we had talked about it. Me and like I texted you.
No, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, I said, hey,
I think it's
bombed the other night.
Yeah, I think it's a very relatable thing, even if you don't do stand up, just because it's like, you know, we really put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I can tell that, you know, you are somebody who has like you at least are valuing stand-up as something you want to do, and so therefore having a bad show is a bad thing. Versus I can imagine sometimes somebody who has other things going for them might just be like, okay, well then fuck stand-up. I'm not going to do that anymore.
No. I don't have that.
Me, right?
I don't have that outlook at all.
Yeah.
I you know what? I'm glad it happened. In hindsight, I'm glad it happened because it forced me to get uncomfortable again and be like, you know what? I don't know if I want to approach it that way anyway. Let me try to write other stuff, you know? And so I think you know, another thing, I didn't mean to like be too preachy, but I think it's good to fail.
Oh,
if you never fail, then you can never learn from your mistakes, you know? Like if you're always hitting home runs, and there's something about that people can't relate to. If you're always like, if you're that means you're a perfect person. If you never fail. So I think it's good to fail because you're forced to feel uncomfortable and to assess where you're at in that part of your life, you know, and be like, okay, well, what could I learn from it? You know?
Yeah, I stand by that philosophy as well. I think it's good to hear from you that because I think it's just something that I know intellectually that it's good to fail, but it's like very hard to still like open yourself up to that. Like,
it's not a comfortable experience by any means. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel discontent. You're going to feel like you're a failure. You're going to feel like you're no good. But I think, let me figure out how I'm going to word this. I think it could be a good thing to be vulnerable and to be put in that situation. In life in general and throughout your life, you need a couple of those moments where you have to reflect and evaluate where you're at. Because let's say I didn't show up to that, and I'd still be doing the and then I'd probably think, oh, this is the good shit, without really like examining what my angle on it.
Yeah, it made you think about that. What about, let's bring it all the way back to wrestling. Like, what about when you choked at that state championship where people who you had beaten got the prize? Like, that technically was a failure at that time. But like, do you feel like, I mean, say you had won, maybe you would have had to pursue that because you're like, well, I'm good at it. I got to just keep doing this forever. And then where would you be? You wouldn't have the podcast. Who knows?
I'm glad. I like the way you're bringing it all around because not only that, Sierra, it is, that specific situation was due to fear. It was because of fear, because fear had completely paralyzed me. I mean, keep in mind I was a kid and I was in high school. I mean, in hindsight, they should have like more like sports therapists or like, on the psychological end of competing in high school. I mean, I think that's valid to examine that, to have that implemented as part of your experience in the program, whatever sport you're doing. But I'm realizing that, it was a fear-based thing that happened, and in a way, I learned from that because I'll give you an example. Let's say I had not let fear overcome me at the state tournament, but I tried my best, but I failed. Let's say I got 7th place. I placed, but I didn't get first, but then I wrestled to the best of my ability without fear being a part of the equation, right? So so in that sense, it's kind of like throughout life I learned, well, as long as I try my best and I don't let fear overcome me, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the results. Okay. I'm not in the results business. I'm in the business of doing the proper actions, the footwork. Okay? So to answer your question, yeah, it's valid, and it all kind of plays into everything, because through that failure in high school, even though I was a kid and I was in high school, I learned from it, because I'm like, well, that wasn't okay because I let fear overcome me. But at least from this point on, if I can walk through my fear, I'll leave the results to the universe, or if you're religious or spiritual, I'll leave it to God and let those entities be in charge of the results,
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a really good way, because that's such an important lesson to learn, and it's best to learn it early, when you are young, where the results, who care, it's not life or death at that point. So that's a valuable
how long
thing.
do you usually
Yeah, I was gonna probably wrap up.
Okay,
soon.
yeah. Because to be honest with you,
okay?
I
You need
do.
to head out.
Whenever you need me, I'll show up for you as well. So
Thank you.
and that goes for
Kindly.
you too. I would love for you to come back on my platform.
Would
Yeah,
love to. It was
you're
a
always
joy.
welcome. You're always welcome.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had so much fun being on yours. And before you plug some things too, I wanted to ask. We normally ask guests, what's a little like tip that you want to give listeners for how to stay positive in life, or something that has helped you when you were down.
That's such a great question. For me, because I am in a 12-step program, because I'm sober, I don't do drugs or alcohol. So I've been taught exactly kind of to add on to what I already said is, whatever you're going through, it will pass. And people go through a lot, my dad passed away. I didn't think I'd make it through that, but I did. That passed. And I don't look at that experience the same way I did that day. So if you're going through a hard time, it'll pass. Not only that, to add to that, going back to like fear and like being scared, you should never feel that. That's not even a real thing. That's always that kind of is derivative in your mind. It's not a real thing. It's something that we conjure up in our brains. So the best advice I could give is don't let that kind of take up too much space in your head. And the way to combat fear and rejection is to do the action, to do the footwork, to show up to the job interview, to show up for this or that, and to just show up, and be present. And I think that's, I don't want to, without getting too preachy, that's probably the best I could give them. Yeah. And if they review this podcast, they'll know I'm not full of shit, because I've actually experienced these things and these tragic disappointments and failures. So I know. Is this the time to plug stuff?
Yes, please.
Okay, so definitely I'm in another podcast with Jeremiah Watkins called Scissor Bros. Go to youtube.com/Scissor Bros. Subscribe today. I also do King and the Sting. Check that out. And then I have music as well. I have my own podcast, youtube.com/Stevie Wiebe. My Instagram handle is instagram.com/QUANGOU, Kwang U. And then I have my music. Most of my music's on my Bandcamp, SteeBee WeeBee Bandcamp.com. I just put my latest project called I Feel Stir Crazy on Spotify. So if you go on Spotify, type in QUANGOU, and not all of my albums on there, but the latest one is. I think I have 3 or 4 things up there.
Awesome.
And we do have Scissor Bros. Can I plug this too? Some Scissor Bro dates?
Please do.
This will be the end of it. I have to write everything down. I'm old school. So I got this at Target. We do have live Scissor Bro events. So February 3rd will be at the Oxnard. And then February 6th will be at the Irvine Improv. So, and all the links will be on my Instagram via my link tree. Okay, thank you so much. I hope this, do you think people will like it?
Oh, yes, I think they will. Great to chat. Thank you again. Okay,
no problem.
bye.
Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, what do you know, folks? We made it to the end. One of the longer podcasts, I'm sure. I'm sure it's one of the longer ones. But I appreciate you for sticking around. I appreciate you for listening. And I am, yes, I may be the deadbeat dad of podcast hosts, but I promise we will make it through. I can't even promise there's going to be regular episodes. No, I will do it. I will do it. I'm going to be unemployed soon. Okay. So if anyone out there is listening wants to give me a job, it's going to happen. I'll be available. But also, if I don't get another job, I'll be even more free to do this, and I'll be more motivated to do it, because I'll probably need money from, all the money I make from this podcast, right? It's lots of dollars, maybe 1, maybe 2. Most importantly, I hope that you subscribe to this podcast if you don't already. Subscribe to my YouTube. Go to my Instagram, follow me. Go to this @StayPositive Instagram, follow Stevie. He dropped his credentials, but I know off the top of my head that his Instagram is Quangou, Quanggu. Go to those dates of shows. I also run a new stand-up comedy show that is in person. My rare ventures out into the world called Heat Wave, and it is at Silver Lake Lounge in Silver Lake, Los Angeles, California. And our next show is February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day. So bring your boo, or don't, or dump them that day, the day after Valentine's Day, because you couldn't do it on Valentine's Day. That's horrible. But the day after, at my show, yeah, I'll give you a pass. What else is fun? Watch The Sex Lives of College Girls on HBO Max. And do yourself a favor. Download Candy Crush. I'm kidding. This isn't an ad for that, but I have been playing and I feel decades behind. I know this was like a trend and a joke many years ago, but personally what I've found is because I'm on social media so much, I was like, you know what? It's a muscle memory thing. I pick up my phone, I scroll through, oh, everybody looks so beautiful and they're doing things. And I realized, you know what, another version of that is I can just play a game and it's not quite the same social repercussions as social media. And I did. And, you know, I like that. I like that. Because the thing is, I love TikTok, say, right? I also go on TikTok a lot. My TikTok feed's starting to get a little too serious, right? I get a lot of stuff. And I understand why I do. I linger on it because I get angry by it. Ooh, here's how this thing is racist. Oh, here's how this history of this is bad. And it's like, oh, yeah. I want to know. Oh, don't get me wrong. I think it's so good that those things are being learned. At the same time, I don't know if I need it. I don't know if I need it every day for 4 hours a day. You know what I mean? Because it's taxing on the brain. And so sometimes you do just need to swap a couple of candies, make a couple 3 in a rows, get a couple candy bombs and maybe some little candy sprinkles. Sometimes that is better, even though it's also equally addicting. So I venture that, the lesser of two evils, you know. I challenge you that. And finally, this is a fun one. I'm on Cameo, cameo.com, Cameo the app, you know. And I don't post it to my Instagram because I'm ashamed. I got a lot of shame, I got a lot of guilt, right? I'm ashamed because I think there's a certain thing with Cameo kind of comes off a little desperate, okay? Not to say that I'm not desperate. Oh, I'm desperate. But I'm doing okay. Like, I'm lucky, man. I'm lucky. I got a job for a little bit longer. I save, and I have a lot of things that I can fall back on, right? I'm privileged. #privileged, right? If everything fell away tomorrow, I could go live with my sister and her baby, and I would say, baby, you got to scoot over. You got to scoot over, baby. I got to take a part of this crib here. So because I have all those possible fallbacks, plan Bs, plan Cs, you know, I don't feel quite like Cameo gives off my necessarily, like, I'm not like, oh, I need Cameo to make sure that I don't live in my sister's baby's crib. But at the same time, I love that. I love the concept of Cameo. I think it's really fun. I think the fact that, like, you know, you might be in a jam for getting a gift, but what's such a fun personal gift than like a video from like somebody's favorite actor, sitcom actor, or old thing. Oh, I was going through all the Harry Potter ones. There's like, you know, like Hagrid is on there and he's like so kind of cute, kind of old, right? He's like just very cute. And then there's like, you know, the guy is like, hi, I actually played the voice of the hat in Harry Potter. You know, it's like people you're like, I don't even know if you're telling the truth, but I want to believe it, so I'm going to buy this. You know what I mean? There's dogs on there. I bought a dog Cameo for my boyfriend once for Christmas. Not on Cameo. It was on the dog's personal website because then they don't get fees, you know. So they get direct to consumer, you know. And yeah, I spent some good money on that dog's website. You bet I did. So what I'm saying is I'm on Cameo. And though I'm not blasting on Instagram, I am on Cameo, right? And will I blast it on Instagram? Probably not. You know, I have people who follow me on Instagram who I kind of don't want to give the impression that I'm on Cameo. You know what I mean? I am sorry that I'm ashamed, okay? That being said, I think it's a great service. Well, okay, here's the real story. I had one guy first request when I was a little cheaper, and it sounded really weird. And he was like, it's like I don't even know. It was like from John to John. I was like, this sounds like it's fake. And then it was like, oh, my friend John always talks at the movies, and can you make a cameo with yourself like covering his mouth, telling him to shut up? And just sounded a little sketchy, right? Don't know what that is. It definitely seems specific, and also maybe a little could be sexual, and I don't really want to do that. You know what I mean? So I declined that one. But then I got another one, and it seemed like a very harmless birthday one. So I did it, and it was very exciting. And I was like, oh, I hope it's good. And I was like, yeah, great. But then I got 4 stars out of 5. And I feel like everyone, I was looking on Cameo, everyone has 5 stars. Like, what did I do wrong? But then I said, thank you for the birthday wish. So I don't know. Maybe it was an accident. Or maybe his standards are really high. Anyway, so if you want to buy one and give me 5 stars, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you want to give this podcast 5 stars, that would be great. All right, I talk a lot. I do. And, it's one of the reasons why I'm doing this again. To have a bucket for my talking. All right, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful week. And don't forget about Stay Podsitive.
Time to smile, motherfuckers!